Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be reviewing the DC Extended Universe film Black Adam. First things first though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm an author of adult and young adult mystery novels, and to date I've released 3 books, The Women in White, The Lethal List, and most recently, Textbook Murder. All of them are on sale now, and there are purchase links in my video description below. With that in mind, and without further ado, welcome to my spoiler-filled review of Black Adam. So the movie opens 5,000 years ago in the city of Kahndaq, which is under the tyrannical rule of King Akhton, who wants to build the Crown of Sabak, which is basically this movie's MacGuffin. It's an item that's known to give the wearer quote-unquote great power by making him or her a virtually indestructible champion with the power of demons. Akhton enslaves his own people and forces them to dig for Eternium, which is a magical sort of crystal necessary to create the crown. This enslavement prompts a young slave boy to lead a revolt against Akhton. Akhton responds by putting the kid up for execution, only for the kid to be whisked away to the Rock of Eternity by the Council of Wizards, the same Council of Wizards of which the wizard Shazam from the 2018 movie was a part. The Council, wanting to bring balance and peace to Kahndaq, chooses the kid as its champion and gives him the powers of Shazam. Through the magic of nebulously angled flashback shots, we're then led to believe that the kid uses the powers of Shazam to kill Akhton and all of his followers, destroy his entire palace, and end his reign. And then the movie cuts to present-day Kahndaq, which is oppressed by Intergang, a loosely defined crime syndicate with next-generation technology. An archaeologist named Adriana Tamaz tries to find the long-lost Crown of Sabak with help from her brother Kareem and 2 colleagues named Samir and Ishmael. Adriana finds the crown in a cave outside of Kahndaq's living areas, a cave that also contains what appears to be the sleeping champion from 5,000 years ago. Then Intergang ambushes her group and kills Samir. Adriana, in desperation, reads an incantation which awakens the sleeping individual, who turns out to be Teth Adam, the father of the kid who was turned into the champion of Shazam. Teth Adam has the power of Shazam though, and he proves it by saving Adriana and slaughtering most of the Intergang troops. One guy manages to fire an Eternium rocket at Adam, which injures him and knocks him unconscious. Adriana and Kareem then get Teth Adam out of there in their van, and Adriana also takes the crown. It's later revealed to the audience that Ishmael is actually a traitor and an apparently high-ranking member of Intergang who plans on taking the crown for himself for unknown reasons. Back in America, Amanda Waller hears about the incident in Kahndaq and contacts Carter Hall, aka Hawkman, to ask for his assistance in capturing Teth Adam and giving him to her, where she can ensure that he remains in custody. Hawkman is a member of the Justice Society of America, a team that consists of him, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher. They all take Hawkman's indestructible nth metal jet to Kahndaq to stop Teth Adam. I just want to make a little aside here. It's at this point that the story really begins to not make sense. Amanda Waller was last seen in the HBO Max show Peacemaker, getting exposed for her extra-legal Task Force X activities. I guess it's always possible that the American government swept the whole thing under the rug and let Amanda continue with business as usual, or that she managed to beat the case against her by other means. I don't know. But this movie makes zero reference to how she seems to be right back where she started and to have had no hassle in getting there, which was a major plot hole in my opinion. Another major plot hole, introducing the frickin' JSA. I mean, I know that the DCEU is a total mess right now, but we've literally been given no indication in universe that the JSA exists before now. In the 2017 Justice League movie, which I think was supposed to be the one that's canon to the DCEU as opposed to the Snyderverse Justice League, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Aquaman, and The Flash were well on their way towards establishing the Justice League as a team that they would lead. And now all of a sudden the JSA is just casually dropped in as a group of heroes that's apparently been operating for, I don't know, years or possibly even decades in some iteration or another, as implied by Dr. Fate. It all just flies right in the face of everything that's been established in the DCEU thus far, and there's no explanation for it. It's like you think if the JSA really has been around for as long as it's implied that they have been, where were these JSA guys when General Zod was destroying Metropolis in Man of Steel? Where were they when Steppenwolf was destroying the world in Justice League? Where were they when the world was destroying itself in Wonder Woman 1984? It's implied that at least Dr. Fate may have been active back then at the time of Wonder Woman 1984, and just, it's a major plot hole, like I said. Anyway, back in Kahndaq, Adriana lets Teth Adam rest in her son Amon's room and later sees an inscription on an inner part of the crown which says that life is the only way to death. Amon, annoying little kid whom he is, meanwhile starts fawning over Teth Adam, seeing him as Kahndaq's national hero. Teth Adam, however, denies that role for himself and leaves. Amon, wanting to prove to Kahndaq that their champion has reawakened, makes a ruckus with Intergang, with a bunch of their soldiers on the streets, and baits them into attacking him. And this plan works in that Teth Adam shows up and overpowers the soldiers to protect Amon. The JSA then shows up in time to stop Teth Adam from killing all of the soldiers. As the JSA and Teth Adam fight, then Dr. Fate senses that Adriana has the crown of Sabbac. The JSA manages to subdue Teth Adam for a little while, then he overpowers all of them and flees to the ruins of Ankat's palace. The JSA asks Adriana to give them the crown, but she refuses to do it. She actually sees the JSA as the enemy and Teth Adam as something of a hero. In her mind, the JSA hasn't done a thing to free her country from its oppression under Intergang, which killed her husband, who is Amon's father. And when the JSA did show up, they destroyed civilian property and caused incalculable damage to her city in fighting with Teth Adam to keep him from killing Intergang soldiers. Meanwhile, in her mind, Teth Adam might not be perfect, but at least he's taking out the Intergang soldiers who are oppressing her nation. And this moment actually would make for some amazing geopolitical satire if the Black Adam writers or directors knew how to handle it. They don't, of course, so the moment basically dies unexplored when Hawkman tells Adriana that his team and Amanda Waller have access to ancient texts that the people of Kahndaq do not. Texts that tell the truth about how Teth Adam is no hero, but is instead the one who lost control of his power 5,000 years ago and destroyed most of Kahndaq in the process. Nevertheless, it turns out that Adriana actually doesn't have the crown. Amon, defending his title as the most annoying kid ever, stole it in all of the confusion of the fighting and took it back home. Ishmael, however, is there with Kareem at Adriana's home, and he reveals his true colors when he realizes that Amon has the crown. He pulls a gun and shoots Kareem, wounding him while Amon escapes. Meanwhile, Adriana and the JSA meet Teth Adam in the ruin of Ankat's palace and try to convince him that he can be a hero to Kahndaq. Amon calls Adriana to tell her where he is and that Intergang is looking for him, which prompts Adriana to beg Teth Adam to save her son. Teth Adam does immediately fly to rescue Amon, but Ishmael still manages to abduct Amon and escape on a flying Eternium bike. Another little aside here, I thought that Eternium was supposed to be rare as established in this movie. Yet and still, Energang uses it in bikes and weapons like it's as common as water. Also, given how one Eternium rocket knocked Teth Adam on his butt and put him out for who knows how long earlier in the movie, I'm finding it hard to believe that Energang wouldn't have just caught on by now and started firing those Eternium weapons only at Black Adam to kill him, instead of just using regular guns and batons and other nonsense like that they already know is just going to make him angry. Anyway, Teth Adam and the JSA fly after Energang and try to rescue Amon by taking out the flying Energang bikers, but it doesn't work out. Teth Adam kills most of the Energang bikers, and Ishmael manages to escape with Amon on one bike. Teth Adam goes back to Adriana's home, and Hawkman manages to capture two Energang members and interrogate them about the place where Ishmael took Amon. Teth Adam uses brute force and intimidation to get those Energang members to reveal the location of an Energang hideout in the mountains where Ishmael most probably took Amon. But Teth Adam's brutal interrogation tactics and his lack of concern for the lives of the Energang members just make Hawkman angry. So Teth Adam and Hawkman then fight verbally and physically over their differences of opinion when it comes to heroes and villains and whether heroes should kill people. They stop fighting though when they manage to realize that Amon hid the crown of Sabak in plain sight. The JSA, Teth Adam, and Adriana then make a plan to use the crown to trade with Amon, after which Hawkman and Teth Adam and Adriana grudgingly agree that they need to work together. Basically work together to make a trade for Amon's life, giving the crown to Ishmael in exchange for sparing Amon. I really don't see why everyone couldn't have just hidden the real crown and had Dr. Fate to use his illusion magic to make a fake crown to trick Ishmael into giving them Amon in exchange. But what do I know? I'm just a viewer. Anyway, the group takes the real crown to Energang's mountain hideout. On their way though, Dr. Fate reveals to Hawkman that he's had a premonition regarding Hawkman's death in an upcoming battle. The JSA, Adriana, and Teth Adam find the mountain hideout, though Teth Adam ignores Hawkman's attempts to make a stealthy plan for entry and slaughters his way inside, clearing a path for everyone else. When the group reaches Ishmael, Ishmael reveals that he's the last descendant of King Ankat, and wanting his rightful place on the throne of Kahndaq as its ruler, he orders Adriana to give him the crown in exchange for Amon's life. This part of the plot is crazy confusing because of how little is explained about Ishmael's whole deal. Is he the leader of Energang? If so, was he just lucky enough to be friends with Adriana so that she'd trust him with the location of the crown earlier in the movie? Did he engineer the friendship with Adriana on purpose? If so, how? Was he behind her husband's death? Did he know about that? The plot holes in this movie. At any rate, Adriana gives Ishmael the crown, only for Ishmael to make the completely predictable move of betraying his part of the deal by putting the crown on his head and shooting at Amon to kill him. Teth Adam saves Amon but accidentally loses control. He kills Ishmael and a bunch of Energang members with his lightning bolts, but he almost kills Adriana and Cyclone and Amon himself, and he destroys the whole Energang mountain hideout. Teth Adam realizes what he's done and he flees again with guilt to the ruins of Ankat's palace. Hawkman follows him and he ends up revealing to Hawkman in a completely predictable twist that he was never Kahndaq's champion, but that his son Harut was. Harut fought in many battles and brought inspiration to the people whom Ankat was oppressing. When Ankat realized that Harut was invincible, he decided to go after Harut's family instead. His men killed Harut's mother Isis and mortally wounded Teth Adam in the process. Harut gave his power to Teth Adam to save him, but one of Ankat's men just killed the newly mortal Harut afterwards. Teth Adam grew so angry that he lost control and slaughtered all of Ankat's men. The Council of Wizards summoned him then and deemed him unworthy. They fought to imprison him, and all of them except the wizard Shazam died in the process, though Shazam himself succeeded in imprisoning Teth Adam for 5,000 years. Seeing the destruction that he did in the mountain hideout, Teth Adam actually admits to Hawkman that he's unworthy of being Kahndaq's champion and protector. He then transforms back into his mortal form by saying the word Shazam and surrenders to the JSA. The JSA places him into a comatose state and takes him to a secret underwater prison where Amanda Waller apparently keeps certain very dangerous metahumans. However, just about as soon as the JSA leaves, Dr. Fate gets another ominous premonition. Meanwhile, Adriana realizes upon a second analysis of the inscription on the crown that Ishmael intentionally baited Teth Adam into killing him, and that the crown only gives its wearer the powers of Sabak if the wearer dies while wearing it. And surely enough, we the audience watch as the newly dead Ishmael is greeted by 6 demons which give him the power of Sabak when he speaks that word. The demons claim that he is their new champion and that it is his responsibility to bring about hell on earth. The JSA, prompted by Dr. Fate, return to Kahndaq to stop Ishmael, who is revived as Sabak and moves to sit on the throne of Kahndaq in Ankat's ruined palace. Sabak summons armies of the undead to Kahndaq to help him assert his rule over the nation. The so-called armies aren't that impressive though. They look like stereotypical undead skeleton soldiers that you tend to see on the big screen, and they can apparently be destroyed by one solid hit from even the weakest of human beings. Adriana, Aman, and Kareem begin fighting the undead creatures, and Aman actually inspires the masses of random Kahndaq citizens on the streets to rise up into an army and fight against the undead soldiers for Kahndaq's freedom. The JSA goes to fight Sabak in the ruins of Ankat's palace. However, Dr. Fate creates a magical force field that keeps Hawkman, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher from going in. He then reveals that for complicated plot-related reasons, Hawkman is destined to die in the fight with Sabak, but that his death can be avoided if Dr. Fate dies in his place. Dr. Fate then fights Sabak alone, though he also uses astral projection to release Teth Adam from his suspended animation so that Teth Adam can help defeat Sabak. Teth Adam manages to escape Amanda Waller's prison. He transforms back into a champion of Shazam, which somehow automatically grants him a new and cooler costume that's more accurate to some of his popular comic book appearances, and he flies back to Kahndaq. Meanwhile, Dr. Fate basically just allows Sabak to kill him, which causes the force field to disappear and allows Hawkman, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher into the palace ruins. The 3 of them fight Sabak, but he easily beats them and gets ready to kill all of them. Teth Adam shows up in the nick of time and fights Sabak himself. Teth Adam actually begins to lose to Sabak though, because Sabak's powers can badly hurt him. He and Sabak are basically each the exception to each other's virtual indestructibility. However, Hawkman then rejoins the fight and, having learned some magic from Dr. Fate while Fate was alive, uses Fate's helmet to create magical duplicates of himself to distract and restrain Sabak so that Teth Adam can kill it. Teth Adam ends up ripping Sabak in 2, which also, of course, stops Sabak's army of the undead and causes them all to, well, die. The JSA leaves Kahndaq on pretty good terms with Teth Adam, which makes 0 sense. The JSA is basically totally okay with trusting Teth Adam completely now because, I don't know, because he saved them and they did battle together maybe, because this is the 3rd act of a PG-13 superhero movie and all of the strings need to get tied off nicely, we may never know. Hawkman essentially tells Teth Adam that he needs to be careful not to let the darkness inside of him take too much control. Cyclone basically just waves at him. Atom Smasher starts fanboying over Teth Adam and starts to suggest that they could possibly team up again in the future, only for Teth Adam to tell him not to push it. After the JSA is gone, Adriana and Amon suggest that Teth Adam could just sit on the throne and rule Kahndaq himself. Teth Adam tries it for a second, but then says that it just feels wrong and destroys the throne, deciding that he wants to be a protector of Kahndaq instead of the nation's ruler. Amon then suggests to him that he should take on a superhero name for himself. Teth Adam never explicitly says what he wants his superhero code name to be, but we the viewers know what it ultimately will become. We know. The movie ends there, and we're treated to a post-credit scene in which Amanda Waller sends a holograph-inducing drone to Kahndaq and, addressing Teth Adam as Black Adam for the first time, tells him that she's letting him off easily this one time. She's allowing him to stay out of her underwater prison as long as he respects that Kahndaq is his new prison, and that if he ever leaves there, she will stop him. Black Adam says that nothing on this earth can stop him, only for Waller to say that if that's the case, then she'll have to call in a favor with beings who are not of this earth. Black Adam uses lightning to destroy the drone, but from the smoke produced in the explosion arises Henry Cavill's Superman. He now has a brighter costume, he now has the iconic hair twirl, and his entrance is set to the iconic John Williams score. Superman tells Black Adam that it's been a long time since anyone has made the world this nervous, and says that the two of them need to talk. The end. So here are my thoughts. On the one hand, this was not a good movie. You could safely fly a 747 through each and every one of the many massive plot holes. Said plot holes include the mechanics of fate, the necessity of Hawkman's death versus Dr. Fate's, the fact that only Black Adam could kill Sabbac, the fact that Black Adam and the JSA go from enemies to friends within 5 minutes during the movie's final act, the contradictions between this movie and 2018 Shazam film, which is supposed to be in the same universe as this movie, what happens to Intergang at the end of this movie. I really could go on for another hour if I needed to, but I won't do that. This is a very plot-driven film, and the so-called internal logic of the movie basically comes into and out of play whenever the script calls for it. There is way too much slow motion in this movie, and the actions and the objects that get the slow treatment tend to be the most random and unnecessary of things. I also wasn't a fan of the monotony of most of the fight scenes. You basically get a million different scenes of Black Adam smashing or killing things or people, and it's all so PG-13, it's all so tame, and they pull back on so much of the brutality, and you can tell that this may have been a better movie if it had been rated R, and if it had kept in more of the brutal reality of the violence. This movie makes a total mess out of the entire DCEU timeline as we know it. The very existence of the JSA in the form that we get here throws into question just about every detail that we've been given in the various DCEU movies and series that have come before, beginning with Man of Steel. This movie introduces all sorts of interesting ideas but just never follows through with them, like Hawkman and Black Adam's clash over the age-old debate about if it's right for superheroes to kill, or like the socio-political satire and how a team of American superheroes feels free to storm into a Middle Eastern country and impose its own vision of justice on that nation's people. Any one of the cool concepts and ideas that get introduced could have made Black Adam a really great and thought-provoking film if it had actually been explored in any meaningful way. Except that none of those concepts or ideas are so explored, and they're each basically just brought up in prospect and dropped with no resolution minutes later. Then there's the fact that the characters are pretty forgettable too. The JSA is treated as a well-established superhero group whose characters have already been around for years, so we learn next to nothing about any of them. except that Dr. Fate is the wise, seen-it-all mentor, Hawkman the fearless leader, and Cyclone and Atom Smasher the wet-behind-the-ears new blood. You get the feeling that each of these characters should have been explored in 1 or 2 movies, or maybe an HBO Max series before they showed up in this movie. Then there's the fact that none of them are particularly likable. Atom Smasher and Cyclone are basically just there. Hawkman is the second most annoying character in this movie, only barely losing out to Amon. He's sort of presented as an alternative Bruce Wayne type with an X-Mansion and a private jet that comes out of the ground and high-tech armor and so on and so forth. His holier-than-thou attitude gets so old so quickly, but not as quickly as his eye-roll-inducingly shallow ideology that superheroes should never kill. In many ways, it comes across as a less nuanced version of the argument between Daredevil and the Punisher in Season 2 of the Netflix Daredevil show. It's like Hawkman has totally forgotten about the concept of the military, the police, self-defense, and anything remotely resembling just execution. And what's worse is that he just keeps on spouting the no-kill rule, but can't present even one solid and sensible alternative. Dr. Fate, I think, was perhaps the most likable for me out of the JSA group, and I really would have rather see Hawkman die than him in the end. I really would have preferred to get a little more action with Dr. Fate as well, and I think I would have liked it a little better if there had been a few more shots of him with his helmet on. The helmet itself was very cool, but he just kept taking the thing off every time there was any close-up shot of him in this movie, even in the middle of battle when it made no sense for him to take the helmet off. It almost feels like a decision that Warner Brothers Discovery made just because the company didn't want to spend any money on the CGI effects of seeing him up close in the helmet. Then there's the fact that Black Adam, Adriana, Kareem, and Amon are all basically just stereotypical cutout characters. Black Adam is the stereotypical anti-hero who probably has a heart of gold buried miles beneath his emotionless exterior. Adriana is the stereotypical scientist supporting character type that tends to appear in these sorts of movies. Kareem is the stereotypical best friend to said scientist type. Amon is the annoying and fawning fanboy kid whom you're not supposed to be able to help but loving. None of them really add anything substantial to the film, which is a problem because Black Adam in particular is supposed to be leading it. Mix all of that together and here's the bottom line. Black Adam as a movie is pretty much a paint-by-the-numbers superhero origin tale that stands only a few feet away from just about every other basic superhero movie that's been made in the 21st century. On the other hand, I have to admit that this wasn't exactly a bad movie either. It falls way short of the more boundary-pushing superhero projects like, say, The Boys or Invincible, but it still leaps and bounds ahead of everything that Disney's MCU has done in Phase 4, with the exclusion of maybe Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, and parts of Moon Knight. Unlike most of the recent MCU offerings, Black Adam is not bogged down with the incessant need to do woke storytelling. It is not afraid to go darker with the subject matter. And also, unlike the MCU, this movie really feels like a proper superhero movie with some comedy versus a comedy with some superhero. There's actually plenty of joking in this movie, but it arises naturally from the situations that are presented versus feeling inserted for its own sake. Then there's the fact that despite this movie's 1 billion fight sequences, the CGI remains pretty consistent and pretty stunning throughout. Considering that I just got done reviewing 9 episodes of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, believe me, that was a refreshing viewing experience for me. My point is that Black Adam as a movie was far from perfect, but it's still a breath of fresh air because of how much it shakes up the formula on what we've been getting for the past few years from superhero movies, particularly the ones that make it to the big screen. Okay, down to brass tacks. Black Adam is basically a good popcorn film. Not much by way of plot or deeper commentary, but still pretty solid entertainment that doesn't feel weighed down by political preaching or basic corporate concerns. I give Black Adam 3 Cronuts out of 5. At any rate, tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, and please ring that bell. So long.